Hello, Lizzie here, and today I'm going to show you how to make amber. And amber is one of the new April patterns for the Gold Club, and now going to be on YouTube as well very shortly. So amber is actually a 1-star or 1 sewing machine. You can just about see it there, and it's absolutely delightful. It's probably one of my most favourite patterns that I've done, and it's so simple. So it's just a little, you can see, just a little clutch bag, nothing special about it until you turn it around, and there you have it. You have the hexagons there. Now I've sort of kind of researched these, and some people call these hexagon bolts because of the way that they look, because they're like appliqued on. And you'll see as we go through how they're layered up and how they're stitched and how probably why they've got that name. But it is the most glorious bag, very, very useful for your tools. It's made out of beautiful linen, and I'm sure you'll be able to find some John Loudon linen that will do the job. And I think this one is ivory. The one I'm making today is chartreuse. So, I mean, that is just a delicious colour too. Yeah, so I think I'm going to find a lot of use with this. First of all, because it looks amazing. It looks just beautiful. It's the fabrics for me that have made it like that, because I've used Liberty fabrics in amongst the linen, and it just ticks all those boxes for me. But it's a good size. It's a really good size. It's probably about 9 by 8.5, something like that. So it's a good size, and obviously you can put your bits and pieces in there. And if you want to put a clasp on it, then you can put a clasp on it. So let's see how we make amber. Now there's going to be quite a bit of detailed work here, which I'm going to try and get on camera for you. But it may well we may have to sort of break it off and do a little bit of extra filming for that. We'll see how it goes, because the detail is all about the hexagons. So let's just pop this to one side. Just pop that over there. So what do you start off with? Well, in the pattern you'll have 2 different size hexagons, quite a large one there and a smaller one there. Now I've backed my little hexagon with heat and bond, or Bonder Web or steamer seam, whatever product you like to use, you use it, as long as you can get it to stick inside the centre of that hexagon. So that's your pattern pieces. And then I've got the outer fabric, the lining fabric, and just 1 layer of 80/20 wadding. That's all I've used. It's as I say, it's incredibly simple. I just totally love it. You can tell. So I've got my large hexagon on my wool mat here ready to press, and I've got my little hexagon there. Like I said, it has heat and bond on the back. So all you're going to do is place that in the centre. Now of course you could fold your hexagon to make sure that you have got it central, but I'm sure you'll be able to see whether you've got that in the centre or not. Okay, and I think that's absolutely fine. So I'm going to press it down in place. So just lightly tap first of all. You don't want to go like that because you might move your hexagon. So once you've got it settled, if you want to do that, then that's fine. And what that's created is a hexagon within a hexagon like that. Okay, and that's now lovely and glued on. Now the next thing is we need a heat erasable pen and a ruler, and we're going to draw lines on our inner hexagon so we know where we're going to fold our little bolts up to. So if you have a look at one that's already made, you can see how it looks, that the outer fabric gets sort of folded over to the inner fabric, and that's what creates the effect that we want. So I'm going to put my mat to one side. I'll need it again in a little while, but the next thing I'm going to do is actually draw my lines. Now the lines that we're going to draw are 1/2 centimetre. Okay, so you're just going to go round and you're just going to mark your lines, and I've deliberately slowed that little piece down because the fabric was still really hot, and obviously it wouldn't transfer the pen ink while it was still hot. So I just waited a little while. So my central hexagon is actually a different Liberty fabric to the outer hexagons, and the one on the front is also a different fabric. So if I show you the one that I've made, So this is the one on the front, and it's this gorgeous fabric here. And when we go to the back, you can see that the centre one is the same, but the outer are different. Now that's up to you what you use, but I quite like that, the difference of the light and dark, just to make the whole thing pop. I quite liked it. So we're actually making this one that's going to go on the front. So if I hold this up to you now, you can be able to see where my lines have been drawn. So I've drawn all the way around my hexagon there, that inner hexagon, 1/2 centimetre. Okay, you don't need your pen and your ruler anymore for the moment anyway. So the next thing to do is that we need to iron about 1/4 inch fold on each of these edges. Okay, now obviously you've just drawn this with a heat erasable pen, so you don't want your iron to go anywhere near those marks. When I made this up, I found it easier to draw the lines and then do the folds rather than the other way around. You may find different, but that's what I found. So with my little mat here, we're going to try and do it so you can see. I'm just folding over the edges, and I'm going to go all the way around just to make those first initial folds, and it's about 1/4 inch. To be honest, I'm not measuring. I've done a few of these now, and you kind of get a feel of the measurement. So if I did get my ruler in, if you want a measurement, let's get it the right way around, it is 1/4 inch. I think I must have done that out just pure instinct. So like I said, just keep your iron away from the lines that you've just drawn. If you've got a little mini iron like me, then it's absolutely perfect for the job. Now you'll notice that the folds don't stay flat, and you're going over existing folds that you've already done, but don't worry about that. As long as you've got that main fold going all the way round, it's really going to help you on the next stage. So let's just finish going around. Okay. Now once you've finished these little hexagon bolts, I want you to give them a really good press. I'm using linen, as I said, which is the most glorious fabric to work with, but whatever you use, you want to get a nice crisp finish. You want to get a finish where it looks like that there's no bulk to it at all, it's quite flat. So the next thing is we need to take this to the sewing machine, and we're going to go all the way around stitching this down. So if we look at the one that I've already made, you can see that it's stitched all the way around the inner. And we will, in a moment, we're going to be stitching on the outer, but when we attach it to the bag, okay? So let's see if we can do this so you can see. I'll just put my mat out the way. And I've changed my normal cream fabric to a green to match. And it's not going to be easy for you to see, I know. But let's do our best. So you're going to fold one edge over. Okay, let's try and get a little bit more central for you. So you're going to fold one edge over like that, and then you're going to fold it again, and you're going to fold it up to that drawn line, no further, and certainly not any sort of nearer. You want it to be dead on that drawn line. So if I hold it up again, you can see the drawn line. I'm folding it. So all I've done is literally folded, it's in half, and I've just gone straight up to that line, and we're going to stitch about 1/4 inch, that's all. So if I put it under the machine, and you'll be able to see a little bit, I'm sure actually once we get zoomed in on this you'll be fine. So literally, 3 stitches, that's all I want to do. So now I'm going to use my fabulous stiletto. You could use the quick unpicker on the other end, a pokey tool, whatever you've got that's got a sharp point to it, because we want to hold the fabric down with that. So this is the next edge we're going to fold over. So we remember that we've already pressed some of it, so you need to remind it that you've pressed it. So you're going to fold it back like that. You can see how that looks. I'm trying to hold it down so you can see. And then I want to flip it so the fold meets that line again. And so now I've got the perfect fold. Okay, now the pictures in the pattern are really good. You've got really good close-ups of this. But the trick, of course, is to get your presser foot over that sort of 45-degree angle that we've just made. So I'm just going to sort of do a few little stitches, not many. I'm going to lift my presser foot up to catch down the point of that corner, and that's all I'm doing. I've just caught that point. And then I'm going to swivel, and I'm coming down that line. So make sure that your folded edge here is following the line that you drew. It's really important, because if you don't, it'll go off at a funny shape. I promise you it does. So we've stitched 2 or 3 stitches again, not many, and we're folding this end over like that, so you can see, hopefully. And then I'm folding it again up to the line, so the fold is coming up to that line and it's going right on the line. Again, I'm coming down, I'm using the point of my stiletto to hold that piece, that 45-degree angle, that beautiful mitre corner in place. Now, if your presser foot on your machine pushes this out of the way, which mine always does for whatever reason, I get to quite close, and then I lift up my presser foot, I bring it down, I swivel it a little bit, bring it down, and then I make sure that my needle goes right into the edge of that fabric. And again, make sure that your fabric is right up against that fold, the line. The fold of your fabric is up against that line, and adjust it. I mean, to be honest, you can get these done really quickly. I'm having to sort of take each step by step for you really slowly, but it is quite a quick process. So a few little stitches, not many. You're folding that edge over again. Don't forget we pressed it, so it should know what it's doing. And then this new folded edge is going up to the drawn line, and you're making a 45, well, it's actually not a 45-degree angle, but you're making an angle. And it's a mitre corner, isn't it, whichever way you look at it. And then, like I said, just get that needle in the point of that fabric right in the corner there, and make sure that fold down here is following the line that you've drawn. So you're going all the way around like that. It's actually really nice. And if you're a new stitcher, you might think, oh my gosh, this is really difficult. It's not. And that's why it's a 1 star, because this is such a simple project. It's the accuracy, if anything, that's going to make you think, make you stop, make you slow down. So we're coming down again. My fold is against the drawn line on my little mini hexagon here. And this is where we started, and I've got 1 more fold to do. So this time I'm folding both pieces over. That whole end is getting folded over. Don't forget we did press it, so there we are. And then I'm going to fold it again, bring it up to the drawn line. And don't forget, if the heat of your iron did take some of those lines away by mistake, do draw them, because I tried this without drawing lines and it was awful. It was not accurate. It was not accurate. So look, we're coming down to the end now, and it's just now super simple. So I'm coming back to where I started. I didn't do a back stitch to start off with because I like things to be neat, but I'm going to stitch over 2 or 3 stitches, so my thread's locked, if you like. It's not going to come undone, and then I'm just cutting my threads. So apart from a little bit of a wriggle there, that's now been stitched. Do you see that? So I could have come back a little bit more on that one, but for the purposes of this, it's perfectly fine. So let's just cut our threads and just keep everything nice and neat. There we go. And really now I want you to give this a nice press, a nice iron. I'll do it from the reverse because I'm using linen. I don't want any shine to be on my fabric, so I will do this from the reverse. But it's this one we're making. At the moment we're making the one that goes on the front of the pouch. And these are all the ones that I'm going to put on the back. So let's just get the iron in, get my little mat. And we'll just give that a little press. Like I say, I'm doing it from the back, just allowing that heat to transfer through the linen, through the Liberty, and apart from being very hot now, that's given me a lovely flat hexagon, really nice and neat. And because and while I remember, you could actually hand stitch these, so where we've done this, the stitching on the machine to hold those folds over, you could do a little running stitch around and do it by hand, which would look amazing. So that's the one for the front. I can pop that to one side. So let's just get this iron off. Let me switch that off because at the moment I don't think I need it. So now we come to putting the whole thing together. The bag itself is absolute simplicity. There's my lining. I've got a lovely green flowery lining, and this is my beautiful chartreuse linen. And you've got to decide which is your top and bottom. It matters not at this stage. So let's just assume that on my right, your left as you're looking at it, let's bring that down, this is going to be the top of my bag. So the first thing I want to do is to actually round off the corners just a little bit, and I can use the lid of a spray can to do that. It's my favourite go-to because they're not super sweepy. There's just a little corner of the project just cut off. So let me just I'm just drawing around my lid, and that will give me just enough of a curve. It means that if you have a pointy bit coming down, that has got to be so accurate with the rest of the bag. But if you've got a smooth curve, optically it's actually more pleasing. That's the only reason why I do it, because it looks better. So I've made my two little marks there, can you see, there and there. So I'm just going to cut those away so I don't have to think about them anymore. The seam allowance is 1/4 inch throughout when we start to put this together, but we're not doing that just yet. Okay. So from the top of the bag, so we've already decided that this part here is the top of the bag. So if I get my ruler in, that is 10 inches, and my heat erasable pen. So from the top edge, which we've decided is already the part that we've curved, so optically, it's a good word today, we know that we're going always from the top, okay? We're going to measure 10.5 inches. So this is only a 10-inch ruler. So I'll sort of estimate the 1/2 inch, which I think is there. And so my 10-inch mark is just here. So I'm going to draw a little line here. Okay, and to find the middle, all I'm going to do is fold that in half. Now I've already put my wadding on. I don't know if you caught sight of that. I've already put my wadding on. And I'm just going to give that a little squidge, and you could put a pen mark there, a little sort of mark, so you know that's the centre. There we go. So it's kind of like X marks the spot now. Can you see that? So that's where my centre hexagon is going to go. So this one here. So don't forget, I said I've got these ones for the outer and this beautiful Liberty fabric for the centre. Now, because these have been almost hand folded, hand stitched maybe, there is a little bit of room for error here of your edges, and whether your edges are all identical. If you're incredibly careful, they will be, but if you've just hand stitched, they may not be. I don't know. It's one of those things where please don't worry about it, because we're going to put this first one down, which is the central one, and then we're going to build up around it, and I'm going to make them fit. You'll probably find you're doing the same. So on the back I've got my glue pen, and I'm just popping a little bit of glue down, because what I want to do is stitch the pattern all in one go. So find out how you want that centre hexagon to be. You might want the points to go from side to side as I've got there. You can see a point, or you might want the flat edges. I don't think it matters much, but you might decide on a certain look. So now we're going to start placing these others down as well. And again, use your glue pen, maybe quilting tape, something like that, and try and get them to fit. So those edges, try and get them to fit. You may have to do a bit of you could say poetic license, but a bit of sewing license, and just wriggle them about until you feel comfortable that they're fitting as best they can. Let's see, I'm happy with that. And also you want to get them so they line up. So the lines of the hexagons, I'll show you on the side camera in a minute, that the lines of the hexagons are parallel to the top. Otherwise, when you look at it, it's going to be a little bit off kilter. And maybe pin them, you know, play about with them to get them right for you. But we want them to sit right. We want them to look nice. So spend a bit of time on this. You'll have spent half an hour doing the little hexagon. So you want everything to now look really nice. I love how this looks. You've no idea. Some things I make and it's like, yep, that really looks nice. I like that. And other things I think, oh yes, it's ticked my box. And this one has. So I hope you have a go. So there's the last one going down, and I want you to have a look at this because that's a bit better. Now you've got to jiggle them about a little bit. And like I say, we're open to, let's say, interpretation here a little bit, because you've hand folded each one, and although that first fold we pressed was 1/4 inch, the other folds have got to come up to that line. Unless they're absolutely 100% accurate, you may have a little bit of difference of opinion on your hexagons and how they sit. So let's have a look at it on the side camera. Oh my gosh, it looks absolutely amazing. So you can see that I've got my horizontal lines parallel with the top. If I bring the top up, difficult to see because it's a little bit off camera, but you can see that line across there is perfect. So when you look at it, when the bag is made up, you know that's not going to irritate you. It's going to always look beautiful. So the next stage is to actually stitch all of these down. Now I'll start stitching and then we'll fast forward a little bit. So otherwise that's a lot of stitching and you might get a little bit bored. So I'm going to stitch the center one first. And then as I come to back where I started, I'll hop across to the next hexagon and I'll work my way around. I'll try not to break my threads off. I'll try to do it all in one go. And you see there, I want you to see everything. Do you see where these two aren't meeting? When you get to that, make sure these are still straight. These are your benchmark, if you like. But try and wriggle that so they all fit. And they will. You just need to encourage them. It's your homemade jigsaw puzzle with hexagons. So I'm going to start stitching and then we'll hop forward to the end of me stitching. So I'll just bring the machine in, and oh my gosh, this is just such a lovely project. And again, you could hand stitch this. You don't have to machine stitch any of it. That's the thing about this, and it kind of fits in with our special guest, if you like, for April. I'm not telling you anything else. For those people who are watching now and that aren't members of the Gold Club, and obviously this is now May, complicated I know, you haven't missed a thing. You're still getting a beautiful pattern. And of course this lovely video to accompany it, which is always a bonus. So the glue will just hold those hexagons in place. If you want to use pins, please use pins. You know I'm not a keen fan, but they are quite useful. So just snip off the end of my thread. So I'll come back to where I started. I'm just going to go over those stitches, just 2 or 3. Oh, I did break my thread. I didn't want to, but I'm going to hop over now to the other hexagon and make my way round. And as you go round, like I said before, you might have to just slightly adjust things, just to wriggle them about a bit to make sure they are sitting nicely with each other. And I suppose I'm stitching about 1/16 inch. So I'm not doing a big seam allowance here, guys. I'm keeping it really neat, really small stitches right on the edge, just to make it really neat. And if you wanted to sort of slip stitch these or whip stitch these in place, by all means do that. I like to think that you'll make it your own. You usually do. Oh, hi there. Thank you for stopping by. I was going to talk to you about the Gold Club actually, and I'm preparing for our Facebook Live tonight, because every week on Facebook in the Gold Sewing group, we actually do other things like free motion embroidery tonight. So the Gold Online Sewing Group, what is all that about? Well, if you go to my website, lizzycurtis.com, you'll see the sign up tab. Click on that, you get a choice of membership, but what you do get every month is 2 different super patterns, especially for you. And do you know what? When they go in the shop the next month, they're $4.99 each. So this is an absolute bargain for £5, about $6.20, something like that. You're getting those 2 full patterns with video tutorials as well. So why don't you join up today and join the online sewing group, which is known as the Gold Sewing Group. I'll see you there. Bye. So back to where I started. I'm just going to go over those stitches. And I think I will break my threads again. I know when I did the first one I didn't need to. I kind of continued from one to another. I must have done it in a different way. So, around the next one. Right, I'm going to finish this off and I'll see you very shortly. So, there we are. I've been all the way round and I've stitched all the hexagons in place. They look absolutely amazing. I just love it. So, the next thing we need to do is to put that one on the front. So on the front of the bag, we need to attach this one, okay? So again, find the centre. So if we fold, so don't forget the top, and it's the centre top that you need. It's the top that has the curved edges to it. So fold that in half. And I make a little pen mark, because we've got the wadding in, you can't make a crease line as well. And just roughly go about 1 inch up from the top edge there. So I know that's in the centre. And now we want to measure 3/4 inch down from that top edge. So if I show you my top edge there, you can see where my black mark is. Well, that's way off. So a good 3/4 inch. There we go. Now this time that's going to be the bottom of the hexagon. So if you notice on mine, the hexagon has the flat edge there to sort of mirror image the flat edge of the bag. I quite like that. So when we pop this one on, I'll put a bit of glue on the back. In fact, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll use quilter's tape, if I can find it, because I did say that that would be the best thing to use if you haven't got any glue. So I should put mine away in a little bag so it doesn't dry out. So a little bit of quilter's tape on the back, just holds it in position while you stitch it, just makes things a little easier. And I'm going to stick the bottom edge on that 3/4 inch line. So if I hold that up, you can see this is my top edge with the curves. And it's, oops, so my 3/4 inch mark is here, you can just see it. And I put the flat edge against that. You decide you might want it on point. So I'm going to top stitch that in place, just like we did before. And it is about 1/16 inch from the edge. You really don't want this to look clumsy, because there's a lot going on. There's a lot of fabric folding, and it might end up looking a bit heavy, and that's why you need to press it. You need to press this, because there's, like I said, there's lots of layers, and you want it as flat as you can get it, in my opinion. You might decide otherwise. Actually, they could be padded out. You could put wadding underneath the centre and pad them out. They'd look like little buttons then, wouldn't they? So just coming back to where I started, so I'll just snip my thread off there, make it nice and neat. So I'm literally going to stitch about 3 stitches over the top of where I've started. So I started right on that point there, so I'm just 1, 2, 3, cut the threads. It's probably 4, wasn't it? But it matters not. And really all you're doing is kind of locking your stitches in place. It certainly won't come undone. So there is our piece finished. So this is the top edge. This is the bit where the flap's going to come over, and this is going to be the back here. Okay, so now what you need to do is join right sides together with your lining fabric. So your lining fabric is exactly the same size. You need to curve the edges, but to be perfectly honest, now I've curved one end, I'm just going to follow the curve and then I'll trim that lining off later. So right sides together, if I can do that. And sorry, I am fiddling here. And we're going to just stitch along that bottom edge. So let me do it that way because you'll be able to see. So there's my top edge there, the curves, the one hexagon, the bulk of the hexagons there. So we're joining these 2 edges together, the short edges, and it's a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Let me just trim that warding a little bit because it was sticking out the end, and I think that's what was confusing me. I like to have it looking at least nice right from the start. So 1/4 inch seam allowance, you're joining right sides together. There we go. So all the way across. Okay, so now we've joined our 2 pieces. You can see what that looks like. And what we're going to do is we're going to flip that lining over to the back and we're going to top stitch. Now you could press this to make it really super neat. I'm just going to roll it. But what you want is that you want the lining to definitely be at the back, okay? So when you top stitch, the top part is going to be the top of your pocket. You actually can't see any lining at all. So it has a tendency, do you see this? Has a tendency to want to do that. So roll it under. You want the opposite effect. And then we're just going to top stitch. I'm going to increase my stitch length for that, purely because it's decorative. And about 1/16 of an inch again. You could go 1/8, 1/4, it's up to you. So all the way across. Like I say, it might benefit from a nice steam because it's linen. It really behaves well under a steam iron. And all I'm doing now is pulling my lining back so it sits underneath. No need to back stitch because it is just a top stitch. And there's the top of our pocket stitched right across there. Okay. So what we've got now are 2 pieces, one on top of each other with the lining. Let's just move that over a little bit. The wadding is making it stick. Okay, good. So now they're sitting flat on top of each other. Okay, there's my lining underneath. And there's my 2 layers like that. Okay, so from this top edge, I want you to mark 6 inches. I keep pulling my pen apart. That's it. I think it's broken. So you're measuring 6 inches from that top hexagon there, from that edge, 6 inches, okay? Do it to one side. So it's there. And you could come across to this side and do another mark there. So if I hold that up, you can see my 2 marks here and just down below, okay? That's 6 inches. And what you're going to do is that you're going to bring this bottom edge that you've just top stitched up to that line. So you could draw a line, but obviously I've got a visual. So I'm just bringing up that to that line. Okay, you can see it folded. I'm not going to alter it in any way. There. Okay. You can just about see it. So there's 6 inches here, and I've just brought the whole lot over, and this is the piece that I've just top stitched. So if I fold it like that, you'll see. Okay. The next part is to bring the lining all the way over. So I'm just getting hold of my lining, and it will stick to your wadding, but do your best. So it obviously opens out. So I'm bringing all my lining back over, and I'm doing another fold here. Can you see? I've now got 2 folds. And I'm just lining up my top edges to meet, which they do. Okay. So we're going to pin this. You can use your quilting clips if you wish. And when you do pin things, pin it so the pin head is outside of the fabric, because generally that's where we're going to stitch, and we can just pull those out as we go much more easily if they were in the other side. So just pin all this. Let's turn it so I can get my pins in the right place. And pin where those layers meet, perhaps at the top here, where the pocket, where the pocket meets here, maybe pin quite close to that to keep it in the right position. Okay. We'll stitch from the wadding side so I can see my curved edges. If you want to trim these back now, or the curves, by all means just get in there and trim back, might as well do it. You're going to do it at some point. There we go. So on your lining, or wherever you're going to start stitching, I want you to remember that top edge, if I hold that up, you'll be able to see this is the edge with the hexagon, the single hexagon. I want you to remember to leave a nice turning gap. So I'm talking a good 4 inches. And if you want to, you could put a little mark here and here. Probably better to do it on the lining so you can see. Wherever you feel comfortable. There's no rules as to where you put the turning gap, other than it's got to be at the top. So that's a rule kind of, really, isn't it? So there we are. Look, I've got my pen marks here and here, and that's going to be my turning gap. So I'm going to start stitching here and come down, and then start stitching from the bottom and come up. Okay. That's it. So we'll start stitching at that first marker. 1/4 inch seam allowance, nice little back stitch, and then you're working your way around that curve. And like I say, if you haven't cut your curve off, don't worry about it. Just go on the wadding side where you can see that curve, and then come down. You're going to come over the pocket top now, and there's going to be a lot of layers there, so just be mindful of your machine. Try to remember to put a new needle in. If it hasn't got a new needle, it'll clonk its way through all these layers. So that's one side. So now I'm going to stitch this side. So I'm ignoring that bottom completely. So just make sure your layers are sitting nicely on top of each other. They may well have shifted. There may be a little bit of a difference because you've hand cut all of these pieces. We're not machines. Not that I'm aware of. So a little bit of error perhaps. Make sure you're very mindful of that, all those layers when you go over the top of the pocket. So come round the corner. I think you might make a few of these actually. Well, I say that because I know I probably would. Yeah, really like them. Okay, so let me show you what I've done. I wonder which is better for you to see. That's probably quite clear. So I've stitched up this side here, so I've gone all the way up and to the top and stopped at that marker. I started here and I've come all the way down the bottom. That's all I've done, okay? I'm going to take a little bit of the bulk away from the squared off corners, and I'm going to use my pinking shears on the rounded corners. I find that a lot easier, and I'm not going up to where my turning gap is. I'm not going anywhere near that, just literally a couple of inches where the curve is, so you can see where I've snipped. So now what I want you to do is to actually cut away a good 1/4 of an inch of the wadding, so where the turning gap is. So I'll do it and then I'll show you. So all you're doing is cutting the wadding, you're not cutting anything else. You're just trimming that away. Okay, oh, dreadful scissors. So it looks like that, okay? Because when we fold that over, you haven't got any bulk of that wadding there. But what I do want you to do before you turn it through is to turn back the 1/4 inch of your fabrics at the turning gap. So I'm just folding this one back. It just makes a huge difference when you come to top stitch that little bit. And then you're just folding back the lining as well. There we go. Nice. Okay, so let me show you on the side camera what that looks like. So I've literally just folded it down and pressed. The same with the other side. If I turn that around, I just folded it down and pressed. So when we turn through, those top edges should be perfect. So we're just going to turn this through now. So if we find a corner, we'll bring that through first. And because we've used wadding, linen, lots of layers with the hexagons, it might take a little bit of work to get it through. Just take your time. You don't really want that turning gap much bigger because you don't want to go anywhere near the curves. It'd be difficult to top stitch and get nice and neat. And also don't forget we've got a pocket in here, so you've got kind of lots of double layers going on. But just keep patient. Just keep bringing it through. Eventually it'll just pop out, she says. There we go. Phew. There we go. Now look, when you turn it through, I want you to have a look at this. When you turn it through, you might end up with the lining of the pocket, or the pocket lining, on that side, and you'll think, oh, I've done it wrong. I've done it all wrong. You haven't, it's just the way it's turned through. You just need to take that pocket, you kind of turn it inside itself. So I'll do it because that's what's happened, which is great, because if you do it, you'll think you've gone wrong. So you just get hold of that pocket and push it through, and you're turning it back on itself a bit. So get your hand in there and push it all out. I've got the sorest of fingers, otherwise I'd be doing this a lot easier. Right, so I've got it so far. Look, that pocket's, I know it's not square, I'm going to poke those corners out, but I've got the pocket on the right side and the lining on the right side. So let me get my turning tool, and I'm going inside now, just to poke these corners out. And like everything, and I keep on and on and on and on and on, it really needs a good press. So I'll get some of it out that way. Oh, just looking gorgeous. And then I'm going to put my tool in the pocket and push out that way. Because we've got lots of little layers going on here, lots of different places. Okay, so that's not bad. It could be better. Let me get in there again. That's better. That's better. Bit of perfectionist with corners, and then just get your pokey tool and just curve those corners. Get all that fabric out beautifully. Just take a bit of time. Use the heat of your hands to kind of finger press it as you're going around. I'm using my heat of my hands just to get those edges nice. I've got a thread. Okay, not bad. What we're going to do is top stitch this from the top of the pocket around. It needs a good press, so you can see what it looks like. There's the single one, obviously. There's our turning gap, which we'll close in a sec, and there's the back. Oh, it's just glorious. So while it's like this, I might give it a little iron, and then we'll top stitch. And I'm only top stitching from the top of that pocket. I'm only top stitching from there all the way around, taking in the turning gap, closing that, and coming down to the top of the pocket. I should do it on the right side, but it's easier for you to see from the lining side. So you're just top stitching from there. So it's just the flap really. But let's get our iron in and our bigger mat. And like I say, it needs a steam because it's linen. You know what linen's like, guys. You look at it and it creases, but it feels and looks amazing. So we'll give this a little iron. I don't want to go too mad. I want it still to have a bit of flexibility as I'm stitching, and I need to move it about a bit. So, yep, I don't want to put too much iron on the linen because we don't want it to be shiny. Okay, that'll do for me, just a light iron. So bring in the machine, and we're now stitching, like I said before, from the top of that pocket. And you might find it's difficult to get your presser foot right up to all those layers. Don't fight it, just go from where you can. So here we go. We're going around 1/16 of an inch and measure that, see what it looks like. It's very small. If you're worried about doing a seam that small, then take your stitch length down. Even though this is a top stitch and we're still on 3, take it down to 2, seriously, because you'll be able to stitch it more slowly and more accurately, and also it'll go round your curves better because the stitch is smaller. Try it and see. So let's just, now we're on the turning gap. So do you remember where we pressed those seams back? Well, of course, now that's made it super easy for me just to line up those edges. Oh, it just looks gorgeous. I don't know what I'm going to put in this yet, because some things I kind of keep for myself. Some things I give away. But this is mine. Oh. So just coming down to that other side now. Like I say, you might not be able to get very close to that pocket because of all the layers on the bulk. But don't panic about it, just go as near as you can. So let's just have a little look at the thread situation. Lovely. Okay, so there we are. So that is amber in the chartreuse flavour, and there's the back. Like I said, it needs a lovely press, which I shall go off and do, but let's have a look at the original. And this is, I think this is the ivory Very, very classy, isn't it? And there's the back. So they have different looks, don't they? They really have different looks. I love it. Right. So this is Amber. This is one of my April patterns for my Gold Club members. And if you're viewing this now in May, it doesn't mean that you've missed anything at all. This is your opportunity now to make it. And I hope you make loads.